Story 1. I've been working at the downtown coffee shop for almost 3 years now. It's a pretty decent job while I finish my degree. The pay is okay, my coworkers are cool, and I've gotten pretty good at latte art little flourishes that make customers smile and occasionally translate into better tips. Most days follow a predictable pattern. Morning rush with business people needing their caffeine fix. Mid-morning lull, lunch crowd, afternoon students camping out with laptops, and the occasional evening date. You get to know the regulars, predict orders, and generally coast through your shift. Last Wednesday started like any other day. I'd been on since 6 a.m., and by 10:30, things had slowed down enough that I could restock the pastry case and wipe down some tables. My coworker was manning the register while I made the drinks. That's when she walked in. I could tell immediately this woman was going to be trouble. She was talking loudly on her phone, designer purse swinging from her elbow, sunglasses perched on her head despite the overcast day. She approached the counter without ending her call or even acknowledging my coworker. My coworker, "Good morning. What can I get for you today?" The woman held up a finger in the universal wait sign while continuing her phone conversation. Woman on phone. "No, I told them I needed it by Tuesday." Tuesday. Is that so hard to understand? This is exactly why I'm considering taking my business elsewhere. My coworker and I exchanged knowing glances. We've seen this type before. After another 30 seconds of making us wait, she finally ended her call with an exasperated sigh. Woman, I'll have a grand non-fat vanilla latte with an extra shot. Half the vanilla, no foam, at exactly 140 degrees. My coworker rang her up. "Sure thing. That'll be $5.75. Can I get a name for the order?" The woman rolled her eyes. Karen. Of course it was. After paying, she moved to the pickup area, immediately pulling out her phone again and tapping away with perfectly manicured nails. I made her complicated drink exactly as ordered, even using the thermometer to get it to precisely 140 degrees. I wrote Karen on the cup and called out her order. She grabbed the cup without looking up from her phone and took a sip. Then she froze, looked at the cup, and marched back to the counter. "Karen, excuse me, you spelled my name wrong." I glanced at the cup where I'd written Karen in my usual handwriting. "I'm sorry, but that says Karen, right?" I asked, genuinely confused. She thrust the cup in my face. "It's Karen, not Krin. You added an I." Looking at my handwriting, I could see how the E might look a bit like an I if you were really looking for a problem, but it was clearly an E. I apologize if my handwriting is unclear, but I did write Karen with an E, I explained calmly. "Karen, don't lie to me. I know what I'm looking at. This is unacceptable. I want a new drink, and I want it for free." My coworker stepped in. "Ma'am, we're happy to make you a new drink if there's something wrong with the taste, but we can't give you a free one just because of handwriting on the cup." Karen's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Are you kidding me? Your barista can't even spell a simple name correctly. This is false advertising. I ordered a drink for Karen, not Karen." Other customers were starting to stare now. I tried one more time to diffuse the situation. "I apologize for any confusion, but the drink itself is exactly what you ordered. If you like, I can make you a new one and print a label for the cup instead of writing it by hand." That's when she completely lost it. "Karen, this is ridiculous. I've been coming here for months, spending hundreds of dollars, and this is how you treat loyal customers." For the record, none of us had ever seen this woman before. "Karen, you know what? Fine. If you won't give me proper service, I'll take matters into my own hands." Before we could react, she slammed her cup down on the counter, causing coffee to splash everywhere, and then swept her arm across the counter, knocking over our tip jar. Coins and bills scattered across the floor as the glass jar shattered. My coworker, "Hey, you can't do that." "Karen, watch me." To our absolute shock, she then lifted the counter divider and stormed into the employee area. Karen, I'll make my own damn coffee since you people are clearly incompetent. I hit the silent alarm button under the counter, a safety measure installed after a robbery last year, while my coworker tried to block Karen from reaching the espresso machine. My coworker, "Ma'am, you need to leave the employee area immediately. This is trespassing." Karen, "Get out of my way. I paid for a service that I didn't receive." By now, our manager had emerged from the back office, alerted by the commotion. Manager, what's going on here? Karen, your employees are discriminating against me and refusing to provide the service I paid for. Manager, ma'am, you need to exit the employee area right now, or I'll have to call the police. Karen, go ahead and call them. I'll tell them how you've violated my consumer rights. Our manager is not one to be intimidated. She's a former military woman who runs our shop with precision and doesn't tolerate nonsense. Manager, both of you, back to the register. I'll handle this. We gladly retreated while our manager stepped toward Karen. Manager, ma'am, this is your final warning to return to the customer area. Karen tried to push past her to reach the syrups. I paid for a vanilla latte, and I'm going to get one with my name spelled correctly. What happened next was both shocking and somehow satisfying. Our manager, with movements too quick to follow, simply stepped aside as Karen lunged forward, then closed and locked the pantry door once Karen was inside. The small stockroom had no other exits. We could hear muffled screaming and pounding from inside the pantry. Manager, the police are already on their way due to the silent alarm. Keep serving customers. I'll deal with this. The manager calmly explained to the waiting customers that there had been an incident and offered everyone free pastries while they waited. Most people were understanding, though a few left. About 10 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. Our manager explained the situation, showed them the security footage from the cameras mounted over the counter, and then unlocked the pantry door. Karen burst out, looking disheveled and furious. Karen, I want all of you arrested for false imprisonment. These people attacked me and locked me in a closet. The officers, having already viewed the footage, were not impressed. Officer, ma'am, we've seen the video. You destroyed property and trespassed behind the counter after being told multiple times to stop. Karen, they provoked me. They spelled my name wrong on purpose to upset me. The officer looked at the cup, which was still on the counter. Officer, that clearly says Karen with an E. Karen, no, it doesn't. Are you blind too? Her attitude wasn't doing her any favors with the police. Officer, ma'am, please turn around and put your hands behind your back. Karen, what? You're arresting me. Do you know who my husband is? He's a lawyer. Despite her protests, the officers handcuffed her and read her rights. She was charged with vandalism for the tip jar, trespassing for going behind the counter, and disturbing the peace. As they led her away, still yelling threats about lawsuits, our manager turned to us. Manager, well, that was exciting. Let's clean up this mess and get back to work. We later found out that Karen's husband was indeed a lawyer, a corporate tax attorney who was absolutely mortified by his wife's behavior. He came in the next day to apologize and pay for the damages, including adding $200 to our broken tip jar. The best part? Our coffee shop now has a new policy posted by the register. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. Also, we spell names phonetically at our discretion. Some of our regular customers still ask about the Karen incident. It's become something of a legend at our little coffee shop, a reminder that no matter how entitled someone acts, karma and security cameras always has the final say. Story 2. I've been working at Wildwood Zoo for almost 8 years now. I started as a part-time tour guide during college and fell in love with the place. After getting my zoology degree, I was hired as a full-time animal care specialist, focusing mainly on our big cat exhibits. It's not the highest paying job in the world, but getting to work with these magnificent animals makes it worth every penny. Most days at the zoo are pretty routine, feeding the animals, cleaning enclosures, conducting health checks, and educating visitors during our scheduled presentations. Occasionally, we deal with visitors who ignore the rules, usually just excited kids running where they shouldn't or teens trying to feed the animals inappropriate snacks. But nothing in my training prepared me for what happened last summer. We had recently welcomed a pair of tiger cubs to our Asia zone. Their mother had rejected them at another facility, so we were hand-raising them until they were old enough to join our adult tiger habitat. The cubs were absolutely adorable, playful little bundles of orange and black fur with oversized paws they hadn't grown into yet. As you can imagine, they quickly became the stars of the zoo. Because the cubs were still young and adjusting to their new environment, we had set up a special viewing area where visitors could watch them from behind a safety barrier. We had multiple signs explaining that the cubs were still wild animals, not pets, and that maintaining a calm, quiet environment was essential for their development. The viewing area had a waist-high fence with clear, "Do not climb" and "Do not reach over" signs every few feet. It was a busy Saturday in July, and I was monitoring the cub exhibit during what we call active time, a period when the cubs are awake and playful. A crowd had gathered to watch them tumbling around and pouncing on toys. Everyone seemed to be following the rules, keeping their voices down and staying behind the barrier. I was answering questions about tiger conservation when I noticed a commotion at the far end of the viewing area. At first, I couldn't see what was happening because of the crowd. Then I heard gasps and saw people backing away from one section of the fence. That's when I spotted her, a woman in her late 30s with designer sunglasses perched on her head and an expression of entitlement that I would soon become very familiar with. She had lifted her son, a boy of about 4 or 5, over the safety barrier and was lowering him into the cubs' enclosure. I immediately ran toward them, calling into my radio for backup. "Ma'am, stop. You need to pull your child back immediately." She barely glanced in my direction. "Karen, it's fine. We're just going to pet them quickly. They're so cute." "Ma'am, these are wild animals. Please lift your child back over the fence right now." The cubs, who had been playing at the other end of their enclosure, noticed the commotion and began trotting curiously toward the child. They weren't being aggressive, just naturally inquisitive, but even a playful swipe from a tiger cub can cause serious injuries. "Karen, look, honey, they want to play with you." The boy, to his credit, looked terrified. He was clinging to the fence with one hand while his mother held his other arm, trying to coax him further into the enclosure. "This is an emergency situation. Pull him back now or I'll have to call security." By this point, my colleague had arrived with our senior zookeeper. Other visitors were filming the incident on their phones, some shouting at the woman to get her child out. "Karen, you're all overreacting. They're just babies. My son loves cats. We have 3 at home." My colleague quickly positioned himself near the cubs, using a training tool to distract them while our senior zookeeper approached the woman. "Senior zookeeper, ma'am, you are putting both your child and our animals in danger. This is your final warning before we call the police for child endangerment and criminal trespassing." Something in his tone must have finally gotten through to her because she huffed dramatically and yanked her son back over the fence. The poor kid was in tears. The son, "Mommy, I didn't want to go in there." "Karen, stop crying. I was just trying to give you a special experience that other kids don't get." The senior zookeeper stayed with them while I checked on the cubs, who thankfully had been successfully distracted by my colleague. Once I confirmed the animals were okay, I joined my supervisor, who was explaining to the woman why her actions were dangerous and against zoo policy. "Karen, those stupid signs are just liability protection. Nothing would have happened." Senior zookeeper, "Ma'am, these are tiger cubs. They have natural predatory instincts and are still learning to control their strength and claws. Your son could have been seriously injured, not to mention the stress you've caused to the animals." "Karen, they didn't look stressed to me. They were coming over to play." "They were displaying curiosity. which can quickly turn to defensive behavior if they feel threatened. Even a small cut from a cub could require rabies protocol. And Karen, rabies? Are you saying your animals are diseased? They should be put down if they're dangerous. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman had deliberately ignored multiple safety warnings, endangered her child and our animals, and was now suggesting our healthy tiger cubs should be euthanized because of her poor judgment. By this point, security had arrived. They escorted the woman and her son to the administration building, while we calmed the other visitors and made sure the cubs weren't too agitated by the incident. When I finished my shift, I went to the administration building to file my incident report. The woman was still there, now demanding to speak to the zoo director. Karen, this is ridiculous. I paid for admission, and your staff ruined our experience. My son is traumatized. The son, I want to go home, Mommy. Karen, be quiet. Mommy is fixing this. Zoo director, ma'am, we have reviewed the security footage as well as videos submitted by other visitors. You deliberately placed your child in a dangerous situation after ignoring clearly posted safety rules. Karen, I want all of those videos deleted. You don't have permission to keep footage of my son. Zoo director, the footage was taken in a public place where there is no expectation of privacy, and it documents a safety violation. We will be keeping it for our records and for the authorities. Karen, what authorities? This is harassment. Zoo director, we've contacted Child Protective Services regarding the incident, as were mandated reporters when we witness child endangerment. Additionally, the Fish and Wildlife Service has been notified because you attempted to make contact with a protected species. The color drained from her face. Karen, this is absurd. I'll sue this entire zoo. I know people. I'm on the board of my homeowners association. The zoo director remained impressively calm. Zoo director, you're welcome to speak with our legal department. In the meantime, I'm issuing a lifetime ban from this facility for you. Your son will be welcome to return with another guardian when he's older. Security then escorted her out, with her screaming about lawsuits and negative reviews the entire way. I thought that would be the end of it, but the story doesn't end there. Later that evening, videos of the incident began appearing on social media. By the next morning, it had gone viral, with millions of views and thousands of comments, most expressing outrage at her behavior. Local news stations picked up the story, dubbing her Tiger Karen in their reports. True to her word, she did attempt to sue the zoo, claiming emotional distress and defamation. Her lawsuit claimed we had inadequate safety measures and had embarrassed her by allowing the videos to circulate. What she didn't count on was the overwhelming evidence against her, not only our security footage, but dozens of visitor videos showing her deliberately lifting her child over clearly marked barriers while ignoring staff warnings. The judge dismissed her case in record time. Even worse for her, the zoo countersued for the cost of veterinary stress assessments for the cubs and additional security measures we had to implement following the incident. The court ruled in our favor, issuing her a hefty fine for endangering wildlife and reckless behavior. The most satisfying postscript to this story came about 6 months later. I was conducting a tiger talk at our adult tiger habitat when I noticed a familiar-looking little boy in the audience. He was standing with an older man who I assumed was his grandfather. After the presentation, they approached me. "Grandfather, we wanted to thank you for protecting both my grandson and those tiger cubs that day. My daughter has issues with boundaries and consequences. This incident was a wake-up call." The son, "I'm sorry my mom tried to put me in with the tigers." Me, "That wasn't your fault at all. How are you doing now?" The son, "Better. Grandpa brings me to the zoo now. We follow all the rules." Grandfather, "She's been ordered to take parenting classes and anger management as part of her probation. We have temporary custody while she works on herself." They thanked me again and continued their zoo visit. As I watched them walk away, I felt a sense of relief knowing the boy was in better hands. Sometimes it takes a dramatic incident like this to reveal deeper problems and eventually lead to positive change. As for the tiger cubs, they're thriving in their new habitat and have become ambassadors for conservation education. We've even incorporated their story with identifying details changed into our safety briefings. It's a powerful reminder that zoo barriers and rules exist for a reason, to protect both people and animals from each other. Story 3. I never thought I'd become internet famous because of my farmer's market stall, but life is full of surprises. 3 years ago, I quit my office job to follow my passion for baking. The corporate world had drained my soul for too long, and I couldn't take another day of fluorescent lighting and passive-aggressive emails. My grandmother had taught me how to bake when I was just a kid. We spent countless weekends mixing dough and decorating cookies. When she passed away, she left me her recipe book filled with handwritten notes and family secrets. Those recipes became my escape during stressful work weeks, and eventually, my ticket to freedom. Starting a small bakery business wasn't easy. I converted half my apartment into a baking space, woke up at 4 a.m. to prepare fresh goods, and spent my weekends at the local farmer's market. The first few months were tough, barely breaking even, questioning my decision, and missing the security of a regular paycheck. But slowly, I built a loyal customer base who appreciated my traditional recipes with modern twists. That's how I ended up with a regular stall at the Sunday farmers market downtown. My neighbors were other small business owners, the fruit lady who grew everything herself on a small farm outside town, the cheese guy who made the most amazing goat cheese, and the coffee roaster whose espresso kept us all functioning during the early morning setup. We formed a tight community, helping each other out and watching each other's stalls during bathroom breaks. That's why when the incident happened, it wasn't just about me, it was about all of us. It was a busy Sunday morning in early summer. The market was packed with people enjoying the perfect weather, and my cinnamon rolls had already sold out. I was rearranging my display of lemon bars when I noticed her. A woman in her mid-40s with an expensive-looking handbag and oversized sunglasses was moving systematically from stall to stall. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another customer browsing around. But then I noticed something odd. She wasn't just looking, she was eating. A lot. At the fruit stall, she picked up a strawberry and popped it in her mouth. Then another, and another. The fruit lady was busy with other customers and didn't notice. The woman then moved to the cheese stall, sampling multiple pieces without buying anything. By the time she reached my stall, she had a small basket filled with various items from around the market, none of which seemed to be paid for. I watched as she approached my display of mini fruit tarts. Hi there. Can I help you find something specific today? She barely glanced at me, picking up one of my apple turnovers. Woman, I need to try this. Quality check. She took a big bite before I could respond, then made an exaggerated thinking face. Woman, not bad. The cinnamon is a bit overpowering though. Let me try something else. I stood there shocked as she reached for a lemon bar. Excuse me, but those aren't free samples. If you'd like to try something, I can cut you a small piece, but… Woman, don't you know who I am? I run a very influential food blog. I'm doing you a favor by featuring your products. She said this loudly enough that a few nearby customers turned to look. I felt my face getting hot. I'm sorry, but I don't give away full-sized items as samples, even for reviews. Each item represents my time, ingredients, and… Woman, whatever. I'm quality inspecting for my followers. They trust my opinion on where to spend their money. She took a bite of the lemon bar, then made a face. Woman, too sour. You should really adjust your recipe. By this point, I noticed my neighboring vendors watching the interaction. The fruit lady had realized what was happening and was checking her display with a frown. You need to pay for those items you've been collecting from all the stalls. The woman looked at her basket as if surprised it was there. Woman, they're just samples. Everyone knows food bloggers get free samples. It's how this works. Free advertising. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. That's not how the farmer's market works. We're all small business owners here. Those aren't sample sizes you're taking." She rolled her eyes dramatically and reached for another one of my cookies. That's when I gently placed my hand over my display case. "Me, please don't touch anything else unless you intend to purchase it." "Woman, how dare you? Do you know how many followers I have? I can make or break businesses like yours with one post." The people around us had grown quiet, watching the scene unfold. I noticed the coffee vendor a few stalls down had his phone out, pointed in our direction. "Me, I'd be happy to set up a proper tasting sometime for your blog. But right now, you need to pay for what you've already taken from me and the other vendors." "Woman, this is ridiculous. I'm doing you all a favor. My followers are always looking for new places to try." The fruit lady had come over now, standing beside me. "Fruit lady, you took almost a pound of my premium berries. That's $15. "Woman, they were samples. For my blog. Cheese guy, and about $20 worth of artisanal cheese from my stall." The woman looked around, suddenly realizing she was surrounded by unhappy vendors and curious onlookers. "Market manager, what seems to be the problem here?" I hadn't noticed the market manager approaching. He was a retired teacher who volunteered to organize the market and keep things running smoothly. "Me? This customer has been taking items from multiple vendors, claiming they're free samples for her food blog." The woman straightened her posture, switching to a more professional tone. "Woman, I'm a food blogger with a significant following. I was sampling items to feature in my upcoming post about this market." "Market manager, do you have a business card? Which blog do you write for?" The woman fumbled in her purse. "Woman, I seem to have left my cards at home, but my blog is called Taste of the City. Very exclusive. Invitation-only readership." The coffee vendor had walked over now, still holding his phone. "Coffee vendor. Funny, I can't find any food blog with that name. But I did get your whole sampling spree on video. Been filming for my business TikTok account. Already got 200 views in the last 5 minutes." He turned his phone around, showing a live TikTok stream with comments rapidly appearing. The woman's face went pale, then quickly turned red. "Woman, you can't film me without permission. That's illegal." "Market manager, actually, this is a public space. Now, you have 2 options. Pay for everything you've taken, or I call the police for theft." The woman looked around, seeming to finally realize the situation she was in. Without another word, she dug into her purse and pulled out her wallet. "Woman, fine, but none of you will be featured in my blog now." She slapped down some cash on my table, enough to cover what she'd taken from all of us, though barely. Then she stormed off, leaving her half-eaten samples behind. We all looked at each other, then burst into laughter once she was out of earshot. Coffee vendor, guys, this video is blowing up. Over 1,000 views now. By the next day, the video had over 1 million views. People started calling her Farmer's Market Karen, and the incident became a local legend. Even better, supporters started showing up specifically to visit the stalls that had been targeted. The following Sunday, the woman tried to return, wearing a hat and different sunglasses as a disguise. But the market manager spotted her immediately. "Market manager, I'm sorry, but after last week's incident, you're no longer welcome at this market." "Woman, this is outrageous. You can't ban me." "Market manager, I absolutely can. We have a zero-tolerance policy for theft." Several people nearby recognized her from the viral video and started taking pictures. Realizing she was making things worse for herself, she turned and left. My little bakery stall got so much business from the incident that I was able to rent a small commercial kitchen space the following month. Sometimes I wonder if I should send her a thank you note, but I think knowing her free samples scheme cost her access to the best farmers market in town is satisfaction enough. Story 4. I've been a manager at City Cinemas for almost 5 years now. I started as a ticket taker during college and worked my way up. Most days, I genuinely love my job. There's something special about providing a space where people can escape into different worlds for a few hours. But some days like last Friday test my patience and remind me why we have security cameras everywhere. I usually work weekend evenings because they're our busiest times, and experienced management needs to be on hand. This particular Friday, we were premiering a highly anticipated drama that had been getting Oscar buzz. All 10 screens were sold out, and there was a palpable excitement in the lobby as people lined up for popcorn and drinks. Everything was running smoothly until about 15 minutes before the 7:30 p.m. showing. That's when she walked in, a middle-aged woman carrying a large designer purse that looked suspiciously bulky. I was helping at the concession stand when I first noticed her, mainly because she was speaking loudly to no one in particular about how ridiculous the ticket prices were, despite the fact that we're actually cheaper than most theaters in the area. One of our younger staff members, a high school kid working his second week on the job, was checking tickets at the entrance to the theater hallway. I watched as the woman approached him. Teen employee, ticket, please? Karen, yes, here you go. Theater 4, right? She barely glanced at him as she thrust her ticket forward, attempting to walk past him immediately. But the kid, following protocol, actually checked her ticket. Teen employee, ma'am, this is for the 9 p.m. showing, not the 7:30. Karen, don't be ridiculous. I bought a ticket for 7:30. Teen employee, it says 9 p.m. right here. If you'd like to see the 7:30 showing instead, you can check with the box office about exchanging it, if there are seats available. Karen, listen, I don't have time for this. The movie is about to start, and I'm going in now. She tried to push past him, but he stood his ground, something I was proud of, considering how intimidating she was being. Teen employee, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't let you into a different showing than what your ticket is for. That's when she escalated from merely entitled to completely unreasonable. Karen, get your manager right now. I was already on my way over, having anticipated trouble. I introduced myself as the manager and asked what the problem was. Karen, this child is refusing to let me into my movie. I paid good money for this ticket. Me, ma'am, as he explained, your ticket is for the 9 p.m. showing, not the 7:30 p.m. showing that's about to start. The 7:30 showing is completely sold out. I'm afraid you'll need to come back for the 9 p.m. showing. Karen, this is outrageous. I drove 30 minutes to get here. I'm not driving back home and then returning later. Me, I understand the inconvenience, but we can't create a seat that doesn't exist. You're welcome to wait in our lobby or visit one of the restaurants nearby until you're showing. She glared at me for a moment. Then her entire demeanor suddenly changed. She smiled sweetly. Karen, fine. I'll just get some popcorn and wait. Something felt off about her sudden compliance, but I had other issues to deal with. I thanked her for understanding and went back to helping with the concession stand rush. About 10 minutes later, I was doing a standard walkthrough of the theaters to make sure everything was running properly when I entered theater for the one showing the new drama. The previews were playing, but something was wrong. I heard a loud, slurred voice providing commentary on each trailer. Voice. Oh look, another superhero movie. Like we need more of those. And the CGI looks terrible. Several people were turning around in their seats, looking annoyed. I followed their gazes to a woman sitting in the center of the theater, the same woman from earlier. She had somehow sneaked past our ticket checker. But that wasn't all. She had a wine glass, an actual glass, not a plastic cup, in her hand, and a bottle of red wine on the armrest next to her. I approached her row and whispered, "Me, ma'am, I need to speak with you in the hallway, please." Karen, why? The movie hasn't even started yet. Me, you don't have a ticket for this showing, and outside food and beverages aren't allowed, especially alcohol. Karen, I'm not leaving, I'm comfortable. She took a loud sip of wine and turned back to the screen. Several patrons were watching our interaction now instead of the previews. I tried once more to be discreet. Me, ma'am, if you don't come with me now, I'll have to call security. Karen, go ahead. I paid for a movie and I'm watching it. As if things weren't bad enough, a group of teenagers a few rows in front of her whispered something to each other and giggled. Her reaction was immediate and disproportionate. Karen, will you shut up? Some people are trying to watch the previews. One of the teens turned around. Teen, you're the one yelling and disrupting everyone. What happened next left everyone in the theater shocked. Karen reached into her large purse, pulled out a bag of popcorn she had apparently brought from home, and threw a handful directly at the teenagers. Karen, respect your elders. The teens were covered in popcorn, and the girl who had spoken up had butter in her hair. The entire theater erupted in voices, some laughing, others expressing outrage. I'd seen enough. I pulled out my radio. Me, security to Theater 4, please. Karen must have realized she'd crossed a line because she suddenly stood up, clutching her wine and purse. Karen, fine. This movie looked stupid anyway. She stormed up the aisle, deliberately narrating loudly as she went. Karen, and here we see the power-tripping manager ruining everyone's night. Watch how he follows me like a security guard at a department store. Our security guard met us at the theater entrance. I explained the situation, and we escorted her to the lobby. The entire time, she complained loudly about how she was being persecuted and how she would ruin us on social media. In the lobby, I firmly informed her that she needed to leave the premises. Me, ma'am, you violated multiple policies. You entered a showing without a valid ticket, brought outside food and alcohol into the theater, disrupted other patrons, and threw food at teenagers. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Karen, this is ridiculous. I'm a paying customer. Security guard, ma'am, please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. You can leave on your own, or we can call the police for trespassing. She glared at us both, then dramatically dumped the rest of her wine into a nearby plant and stormed toward the exit, yelling, Karen, I will never come back to this terrible theater again. I thought that was the end of it. I apologized to the teenagers who'd been hit with popcorn, offering them free concessions, and the movie started only a few minutes behind schedule. About 45 minutes later, I was in my office catching up on paperwork when the fire alarm went off. The entire building erupted into chaos as we initiated our emergency procedures, directing everyone to the nearest exits. I checked the alarm panel to see which zone had been triggered. It was a pull station near the restrooms. As I reviewed the security footage later with the police, there she was, Karen, who had apparently parked across the street and watched until things calmed down, then slipped back into the building. The footage clearly showed her looking around furtively, then pulling the fire alarm before running out the side exit. Nearly 1,500 people had their evenings disrupted. The fire department had to respond, and we had to issue refunds or rain checks to everyone. The total cost to the theater was over $15,000, not counting the negative publicity. The police had no trouble identifying her from our security footage and her credit card information from the ticket purchase. They arrested her at her home the next morning. She was charged with public mischief, disorderly conduct, trespassing, and falsely pulling a fire alarm, which, it turns out, is a pretty serious offense. From what I heard later through an officer who came by to follow up, she tried to argue that she was justified because we had humiliated her. The judge didn't see it that way. She was sentenced to 200 hours of community service, a $5,000 fine, and was banned from all theaters in our chain nationwide. The ironic epilogue to this whole saga. The movie she disrupted was about a woman who learns humility after her entitled behavior costs her everything. Maybe she should have actually watched it instead of ruining it for everyone else.